everybody. I'm Amy Zawi, and welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. Today, I'm speaking with a wonderful young woman named Naomi Nussbaum. She is the executive director of an organization called OneFamily, and I've got to tell you all, you need to sit through this conversation. This organization is really just such a timely service to the Israeli people, all the Israeli people, just the Jewish people. And I have her here to tell us about this organization because it is a long-term service provider for victims of terror. And it is not something that came up just since October 7th. It's been around for a while, but it is more important now than ever that their work is supported and they have resources. And I want our whole audience to know about it so they can not just pray for this work and the families that they touch, but also directly get involved and engage and support this initiative. Naomi, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I read about OneFamily, and I would love for you to tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about the history, why it came to be, and we can certainly discuss the particular needs and initiatives that are ongoing. But it's such a beautiful program. I'd love to hear in your words how it was formed, why, and where its journey has taken them.
Okay, so OneFamily provides emotional, financial, and legal support to Israel's terror victims, and we've been doing that since 2001. The day of the infamous Sparrow bombing, which was the deadliest terror attack of that time, took place on Michal Belsberg's 12th birthday, which was the day of her bat mitzvah, a big milestone in the Jewish religion. And her party was planned a few weeks later. And the Belsberg family together decided to cancel the party and use the funds to help the survivors of that horrible attack. So Michal and her family went to every Shiva home, they went to every hospital room, and they got to know the people and hear their story. And Michal asked, "How can I help you? What can I do for you?" And she did a lot of shopping as much as she could. You know, there was a young mother severely wounded. Thank God her baby was okay,
Wow.
but the stroller was soaked with blood. And she just couldn't look at the stroller, and she was, in a hospital bed. And she said, "Could I please have a new stroller for the baby?" Right?
Oh,
And
wow.
Michal said, "What color?" And back then, it wasn't like Amazon and it comes the next day. She had to go to the stores, and Michal had to go to 3 different stores to find a pink stroller for that baby. So that's just like one sweet example. But the Belsbergs family opened up their hearts right then and there and wanted to be family for these victims who were not being looked after. The government gives a small stipend, but nobody was bringing them together, and they were so afraid and so alone, and they had so much on their plate that the Belsbergs really wanted to create a community so that, we could bring in therapists to help them deal with the trauma, but also so that they could have peers going through similar situations who could really deeply understand them and see them and know their pain and just understand it even without words. That's very,
Wow, that's really demonstrative of the Israeli heart and the Israeli
yeah.
mindset as a society that always wanting to help and a strong sense of community. And what many Americans and many in the West don't realize is that we go to the hospital, we go to the doctor, and we fix something that's broken, or we have just a sickness or an illness that needs fixing, and then we move on. But when victims of terror are dealing with more than just what might be a bodily injury, right? There's
Yeah.
that, and then there's the emotional scars, but then there's also not just the scars for that particular victim, but then their family, right? Their spouses, their children, they have to function. So does OneFamily address that long-term need, those unseen injuries?
Yes, absolutely. They realized very quickly how much was needed in that community. And 2 weeks later, another bus was blown up. So they made that organization right away and got up and running. And we've been doing it ever since. We have multi-tiered emotional support. So when we say emotional support, financial support, and legal support, there are many tiers and many different aspects to the emotional support part. Financial support is, easy to understand, right? We start with maybe a therapeutic retreat because it's great to get out of the environment where the trauma was inflicted. It's great to get away from all the red alerts, all the sirens. Just the noise causes trauma, right? So you take them out of their environment to someplace calm in nature with trauma therapists, and people who understand, right? They just know. You don't even have to speak. They know, they understand each other. And we can bring them on a 4-day retreat and really get their nervous system to calm down and get them to be open to some tools for dealing with the grief and maybe for adding a little bit of hope back in for the future. Some love, some pampering. And then they come home, and then we start a support group for that cohort that was all on the retreat together. And these people systematically become friends deliberately. There's, like a network of friends. We have professional coordinators who are their professional friends, and they're coordinating a specific care plan for every single member of the family. Each member will need a different plan for different issues that arise. And everybody gets what they need. And after the retreats and the support groups, there's a huge youth division for kids with camp and programming all year round. We have trauma clubs, right? Different kinds of clubs. So somebody might want to do creative writing. Somebody might do phototherapy. Someone might do hydrotherapy. Kids might have sand therapy and play therapy, right? There's probably a list of 20 different therapies that people can join in and do. And we have alternative treatments like EMDR and deep tissue massage, and whatever they request, whatever they need, we're going to find for them, right?
Wow.
So we have like traditional therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, the retreats, the support groups, the clubs, and alternative treatments to make like a comprehensive emotional support package, right, for all the individual needs. And we have financial support for the immediate crisis. And if somebody's at risk, if we lose a breadwinner, right? So maybe that family needs their rent paid for the entire year while they're learning how to deal with the grief. And then we can get them up and running when they're a little bit more stable, right? And help them become independent again. But we want total support while they're grieving.
That's amazing. And it's beautiful because you have this multiple touch point approach, right? So it's very comprehensive, and it reaches into the family and further network of the victim, beyond just their sphere that they live in. And this organization, One Family, has been doing this since 2001, and just really serving the needs of the terror victims in Israel, which unfortunately there always are terror victims in Israel. But then we get to 2023 and we have this unprecedented event where the numbers now are just staggering, the largest set of terror victims since the Holocaust, essentially. So what changed, or how did that affect One Family in terms of, I mean, obviously they saw the need, but what was going on in everybody's heads and mobilizing?
Okay, so we all know October 7th was just horrific. But to put it in perspective, the number of people murdered in Israel in the previous 23 years nearly doubled in one day.
Wow.
So if you combine 23 years of murdered terror victims
and then double it,
and then in one day we lost the same amount, or very close to the same amount. So that was just horrific. And there's no way to scale like poof, right? But that's what we needed to do. So that night we had a 24-hour emergency hotline, and we had 20 volunteers sitting around our boardroom table, with WhatsApp groups. People are answering the phone, putting problems into the WhatsApp chat, and who can solve this one, and who has an extra bedroom for this one, right? And they were all pulling it together for the people that were calling. Also pivoted from our previous model, which is that when there was a terror attack, you would hear on the news there was a terror attack, and we would go to those victims, whether it was the bereaved family members or injured people in the hospital. Because Israel is so small, you can easily find out where someone lives and show up at their house, or which hospital that person was in, and they know us, so we can show up at the ER and they'll tell us where to go and who to help, right? But after October 7th, that wasn't possible because the numbers were massive. So we instantly started putting together programs, but we publicized them. So we would say, if you're a newly bereaved parent in the south of Israel, where the October 7th massacres happened, please come to this event, this place, and this time. And we publicized it. And if you're a newly bereaved sibling in Tel Aviv, please come to this event for young adults, this place and this time. And new widows in Jerusalem, right? So we just started blasting out about our events and inviting anyone bereaved to attend. And that's how we immediately pivoted to try to help as fast as we could for all the October 7th victims. Obviously, we do need to triple or quadruple in size and in donations in order to be able to properly handle the scope of need in Israel right now.
Well, I would imagine, yeah, quadruple at least because you need to secure the professionals, right? The
Yes.
people with the skill set and the
Yeah.
knowledge to be that help. Just so everybody knows, we'll put everything in the show notes so that you can learn more and also donate. But overcometerror.com is the website address to make a tangible act of either contribution or get involved right away. And then the One Family website can give you more of the history. So we'll have all that in the show notes so people can get to that. And then also your social media feeds as well that we'll share.
Yeah. I think it's One Family Together.
One
That's
family together. Okay, very good. So you've pivoted, yeah, instead of going out to the victims because
there
it
were too
was
many.
something manageable, I suppose is the only word.
Right.
Now you've had this massive, unprecedented event that is, I mean, everyone's still wrapping their head around that it even happened. In the first 24 hours, you mobilize and you create these centralized points, throughout Israel that address the particular sets of needs, like you said, the mother and widows or the parents, what have you, siblings of. So, what was the result of that? Because I'm sure One Family Together is a known and trusted entity in Israel, right? You've been around for 20 some years at that point. People trusted the name, they knew who you were. So was that a successful outreach? Did it start the ball to get people connected to you, the people in need?
It did. And not everybody has heard of us and not everybody is so trusting. People are different, right? A lot
Right.
of people trusted us and a lot of people said no thank you, or they're not ready, or they came later. It's all personal preference. But yeah, like the for the bereaved parents in the South, they started signing up for a therapeutic retreat. And we took cohorts of 50 parents every week for 4 days to Cyprus, outside of Israel, away from the war, for a therapeutic retreat with like natural springs, and they had ocean water and healthy meals, appropriate entertainment, and beautiful symbolic rituals, right? And a lot of sharing, and they get to know each other. We ended up filling like 17 or 20 cohorts. Like for months and months, we
Wow.
were just like sold out, and we would take a group. And every time we take a group, of newly bereaved parents, we always put one or two couples of parents who were bereaved 5, 10, 20 years ago,
Okay.
right? To show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can live. Like sometimes people don't know how on earth they're going to live through the murder of a child because it's too overwhelming, right? So if you meet a real live person who actually lived through a trauma, a horrible trauma like that, it really does give hope that things will improve, right? We're never getting that lost soul back, but
Mhm.
things can get better than it is right now in the immediate crisis. So we add that element of hope and we put them in a situation where they can become friends. And we have 3 different trauma therapists giving tools to help with the grief and to become resilient. And it works. Then they come back and they start regular support groups with their cohort, and they become friends and they start reaching out to each other outside of the support groups. And then it can be birthdays and yurt sites and holidays and any other difficult situation. And it can just be, it's too hard to get out of bed today. I
All
can't
right.
I can't get out of bed today. I can't get dressed today. And they have, they can always call One Family and they can call their new friends.
That's beautiful. So in sort of pairing up or providing, and it's amazing that there's trauma survivors who are willing. I mean, that also is amazing to me that these
Yeah.
these bereaved parents, for example, are on their journey, which never ends, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
end. And then they're willing to mentor, so to speak, or
Yeah.
reach out to those coming after them. And then I like how these retreats are also not just connecting these people to see the hope in those that came before them in similar situations, but as you mentioned, you can take them out of the situation and they can remember that you can enjoy, this something in life, right? Like a stream or a vista or a beautiful meal. So all of that aids in the healing,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really ever heal.
Right. That's not something that we're used to talking about here. But they say, it's just a journey. You're never healed, past tense. You're
Mhm.
always on the healing journey, right? Your child is never going to be unmurdered. So it doesn't heal, it doesn't go away. There's always a massive hole in
Mhm.
your heart, but we don't want them to lose hope and give up and ruin their life, right? We want to be able to give them enough love and pampering and resources and tools to be able to, hold the grief and a little bit of joy and love, bring them back to life at the same time.
That's beautiful. So we are now, unfortunately, coming up on the second anniversary of October 7th. We still have 50 hostages by the time we're recording this that are still being held captive. And so there's those families, right, that are dealing with the unknown. And then
Yeah,
there's families dealing with the known, but it's all
right.
terrible. Tell us a little bit about what has been going on this summer on this journey, because I know you've had some particular retreats and outreaches to particular sets of folks in those different categories, I guess. It's not a good
Yeah, we break them down by demographics, right? So that they
Okay.
can all have peers close to their age, right? So within the widows category, we have widows who are over 50, and most of them just live alone because they lost their spouse and their kids are grown. So
Mm,
we have,
okay.
women who are alone in a house. We have very young widows who just got married, and we have a separate division for those who are raising young kids all by themselves and those who didn't have the time to have children,
Oh
right? They feel
gosh.
like
Yeah.
they lost their husband and their future children. We even have a support group for like the female fiancés who never made it to their wedding canopy before they lost the love of their life, right? So these are
Wow.
subdivisions within the
Mhm.
widows
Mhm.
division. And we have somebody overseeing the widows division who was in our widows division for 6 years. And she and her children really benefited from all the programming. And then on October 7th, she ran to us to volunteer to help and speak to the new widows. And after 2 months of volunteering, we gave her a full-time job. Right.
Wow. Wow. That's one of the most impressive aspects of the Jewish people and the Israeli people, that no matter how much pain an individual has gone through, physical, mental, both combined or some set thereof, that willingness to I mean, I know it's not everybody, but enough people step up and say,
Yes.
I'm going to help those who are coming after me
Yeah.
in any way I can. And there's no perfect road, and there's, like you said, there's no past tense. You never get to the finish line of being healed, but you have to. And then what's going on with, if you can share with us a little bit about some insight with children, with the
Sure.
children.
Okay. So you asked about this summer and you're asking about children. So we had a retreat for the orphans of October 7th, right? There are some young children who lost both parents. And by the way, we also help the young adults who have lost both parents, right? Just because someone's 18 years old doesn't mean it hurts any
Yeah,
less
yeah,
to have both
exactly.
parents murdered in one day, right? So, but we have a separate division for them. This summer, we took the young orphans of both parents, along with their new adoptive parents and maybe cousins, right? So the adoptive parents are most likely aunts and uncles who have cousins who are now almost siblings, right? And in some cases, grandparents adopted the kids. And those people need to rework out the family dynamics, right? Because an aunt and uncle are now kind of replacing mom and dad. Not that mom and dad can never be replaced,
Right,
just
but
that,
taking on that role in their nurture and
yes,
yeah.
they're switching roles, whether it's the grandparents or the aunts and uncles and even the cousins. Everybody's switching roles and they're all grieving differently at the same time,
Mhm.
right? An orphan is grieving for both parents. The aunts and uncles are grieving for a lost sibling and in-law. The parents are grieving for a child, and they either have to come out of retirement or give up a job to parent young
Take
children.
care of young.
So we took those new families to Mexico for 2 weeks
Wow.
to help them bond, right? They have to bond with each other. And if you give them different types of situations where they're having fun, they come together and they gel a little bit more, right? And that's what they need. They need to work out their dynamics and have fun together. Um, they have to realize that everybody is grieving. Everyone's in pain differently, but they're going to come together as a family and get through it. And, we're going to make it okay. It's not okay, but we're going to make it okay. So that was one of the retreats that we had. We had another retreat for the orphans over the age of 18, right? Between 18 and 35, there's a cohort of people who had both parents murdered. So they feel very lost and alone. They have no place to go home to.
Mhm.
So one family becomes their family. We've had an orphans division going since 2001. So it's actually interesting. We call it Sayeret, which means elite, but it's like the hardest grief to overcome when you lose your parents. So we have been raising orphans for 2 decades who are now adults, young adults. Some of them are married and have children of their own. And there's no grandparents to help with those new kids. There are no presents on birthdays. There's no going to the grandparents' house on holidays. And that really hurts. So we are always bringing them collectively together as a family, and they have grown up together as a family. They love each other. The Bellsbergs pay very special, close attention to them. And they are opening their arms to also the youngest families. Nobody knows how to deal with life and the government and all of it like somebody who's done it before. So yes, they help each other, and it's like tragic that we have generations of orphans now, but we do. So that's we have the older orphans, we have the adult orphans, we have the new young orphans, and we have retreats for all of them. We had another retreat for mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws together,
Wow.
like those
Wow.
that pair of women, because we've lost so many soldiers and reservists. So a mother is grieving for her child, even if it's an adult child, and the wife is grieving for the her soulmate, right? And mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws have different types of relationships when the son is alive and also after he's gone, right? So we bring them together to help them have a good experience, to appreciate the grief that the other one is going through. It's different than their own. To talk about the positive qualities in each other,
Wow.
right? So they do art projects, and they're sharing circles and therapy. Maybe they went surfing or paddleboarding, I believe, and took some. So they did like phototherapy, ceramics, and paddleboarding and therapy groups. And it really brought them together in a beautiful way. We're realizing, because of the mass devastation, right, that we have to recognize different groups of people. Like grandparents aren't always recognized. They're not part of the Jewish mourning, like officially. But we've lost so many young soldiers and reservists that we have this huge group of grandparents that's
Right.
left mourning, and they're not formally recognized by the religion. So we now have support groups for bereaved grandparents who lost their kids in the army or their grandkids, right? We also have support groups for grandparents whose daughter is now a widow. Like,
Mhm.
how do you help a widow? How do you support your daughter when she is a young widow now? And how do you take care of the grandkids? Do they have to give up their job to help babysit, or are they coming out of retirement? They're really tired, but now they have to get up and babysit. So we're bringing them together to talk about their issues as well. And we had a Women's Empowerment Day just the other day also, right? We packed with retreats over the summer to bring everybody a little bit more healing, some more connection, some more hope for the future, a little bit of relaxation.
It's really quite beautiful because you're addressing the emotional need, the psychological need, but also very tangible and practical needs. So it's very holistic in the approach, where
Yeah.
you're finding out all the niches of the pain and the hurt, and just very practical ways to bring people through it, and I guess, for lack of a better phrasing, learn to live with it kind of outcome.
Right. They have to learn to be resilient, right? And they
Resilient
have
is
to
the
learn
right word.
that it's okay for the entire range of emotions, right? Some people are angry, some people are devastated, but it's also okay to be happy sometimes, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they just feel like they'll never be able to smile again, right? Or they'll never go out to dinner again. Like they feel like they have to be stuck in this black hole of despair. And we try to gently introduce them to the concept that it's okay to come back to life. Like,
Mhm.
you can hold the memory of your loved one, and you can be
Smile.
alive. You
Yeah.
can smile sometimes. You don't have to smile all the time, but let's bring a little bit of joy back to your life. We love you too, you know?
That's right. That's beautiful. So, everybody, I want you to know that One Family Together, again, we'll share the website in our show notes and on our screen, and to actively participate in contributing to these much needed outreaches, the retreats, the services, the professionals that need to be hired and on staff, and to be at the ready. God forbid something else happens. We pray for that never to happen again, but we have to be prepared. Go to overcometerror.com, overcometerror.com, please. Any contribution. If all the Christians out there contributed what might be, once a month a dinner bill, right, to this organization that's serving a tiny 2% of the Western population, and half of the Jewish population is in Israel, and your One Family Together doesn't just serve the Jewish community, right? Any victim of terror.
That's true.
If it's an Arab, Israeli, or, Christian,
Yes.
Muslim, Arab, Israeli, Druze, Bedouin,
Yes.
all of these communities have suffered these losses, and One Family Together is not discriminating. They have the Israeli heart where everybody is loved and served.
Everybody is loved and served. This is about the humanitarian help. This is about overcoming the pain. The pain is so big, it cuts through any barrier. So we have mixed groups, mixed programming for a lot of people. And it doesn't matter what religion anybody is when they've lost a child or
That's
lost a
right.
spouse.
It's a universal pain, unfortunately. Naomi, is there anything else you would like our community to know as Christians, as folks in the West? Is there anything else we should be aware of other than the need to step up and contribute to help towards it? We're a praying bunch, so we'll pray for sure.
Well, I want to say that, our values are very similar. Religious values are beautiful because other than the extremists, the rest of us really have wonderful values and a beautiful way of life. And it really is about coming together as a family. And, whether we're American or Israeli or this religion or that religion, we all want to help and make the world a better place. We
That's
want
right.
peace. We want brotherhood across borders. We want a better life for everybody. So being part of this family is very special. And, we have to look for the silver linings. And I think your listeners and your audience will definitely help us build a silver lining, bring some people back to life.
That's right. That's what I encourage everybody out there to do, is participate in building that silver lining and contribute and be a part of it. Know that if you contribute and you participate, then you know that you're blessing Israel and you're blessing the people of Israel, all the people of Israel. Remember that website is overcometerror.com. The name of the organization is One Family Together. Again, check the show notes for all the links. Follow them on your favorite social media as well. Naomi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll have you back in a few months with any progress, and we'll learn more
Absolutely.
about what's going on, and perhaps a case in point of a family in a journey of healing. And
Absolutely.
everybody will stay in our prayers continuously. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Good night.
עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל, עם ישראל